All right, so our next video now for section 3.3, we're still going to be dealing with standard deviation, but this time we're going to go through the video and as if we're creating or finding the standard deviation for a grouped frequency. All right, you'll see that this is very similar in the beginning, at least, for finding the mean for the group frequency, but then obviously it's going to be a little bit different after the beginning, first few stages. All right, so let's just go ahead and do a problem. All right, so if we were given this grouped frequency here, where we're just given the class and the frequency, and we want to find the standard deviation for this, we start off exactly like we did if we were finding the mean for the grouped frequency. So the first thing we have to do is we have to find our midpoint. So we add our class boundaries together, divide by 2, and that gives us our midpoint for each of these. All right. Then the next step is exactly what we did before, which is where we then are going to take this midpoint and we will multiply it by the frequency. So our frequency multiplied by our midpoint. So this doesn't change either. So 1 times 8 is 8, 2 times 13 is 26, 54, and so on. Let me fill in this chart now. All right, so nothing changes right now. If we were finding the mean for this group frequency, right now it would be the exact same steps. Now this is where it gets different. There is now one more column that we need to create. And what this is equal to is it's equal to our frequency now multiplied by our midpoint squared. So our midpoint in this case is 8. So 8 squared is 64. 64 times 1 is 64. Our midpoint 13 squared is 169. 169 times 2 is going to be 338. 54 squared is going to be 2916. 2916 times 3 is going to give me I'm sorry, I was doing the wrong thing. It's our midpoint squared. So 18 squared is 324. And then 324 times our frequency is then going to give me 972. All right, the next one, we will do our midpoint squared, 23 squared, times that by 5, and that will give us 2645. 28 squared, and then times that by 4 is 3136. 33 squared, times that by 3 is 3264. And 38 squared, times that by 2 is 2888. All right, so it's very similar if we're finding the mean of our group frequency or if we're doing our standard deviation. The main difference here obviously is just this step here we did not have to do before, but we square our midpoint. So these numbers we will square and then we will multiply it by our frequency. All right, then we will add all of these up. So these all will add up to give me 490. These ones will add up to give me 13,310. All right, now, this is where it gets pretty tricky. We take the sum of our midpoint squared times our frequency, so 13,310, and then we are going to subtract, and in parentheses, we then take our sum of our frequency times our midpoint, we square it, so it'll be 490 squared, and we divide this by the number of frequency that we have, which in this case, we would then add up these, which is giving me 20. So then we divide this by 20. And then this is all over top of our frequency minus 1, so 20 minus 1. Right? This is a formula that I will give you on your tests. You will not have to memorize this, but you will have to know how to use it. All right, so the first thing we would do here is we would square the 490. Then we would divide that by 20. We subtract our answer from 13,310, divide it by 19, and that will equal to 68.7. All right, but the problem is this is our variance. Remember, our standard deviation is after we take our square root. So then we take the square root of this number here, and that will be 8.3. So the standard deviation of this grouped frequency would be 8.3. All right, this is something that we're going to go through again in class. I just want you guys to at least be able to do this part so that we can save some time in class, and we will go through this formula in class. But if you guys are able to at least do this part on your own, then it will just save us time without needing to go through all this. So really, I hope that from this video, you know that when you're finding your standard deviation of your frequency, grouped frequency, you are following exactly what you do for your mean, where you find your midpoint, then you multiply that by your frequency to get these numbers here, but then you square your midpoint and then multiply it by frequency to get these numbers here. All right, that's what I'm hoping you guys are able to do with this video, and we will discuss this in further detail.